On March 25th, 2020, we all watch a man killed in broad daylight. For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, George Floyd cried out for his life. He cried out for mercy. He cried out, he can't breathe, yet he remained trapped, handcuffed, pressed down against the concrete by the weight of Derek Chauvin and two other officers holding on to George's back and legs as George begged and pleaded for his life. But they kept on. And the officer, Derek Chauvin, kept his knee firmly pressed against this man for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. 2 minutes and 53 seconds of that was after George became unresponsive. My heart aches over the hatred I see in the world. And here we are in the midst of a pandemic, dealing with burying our loved ones and dealing with sickness that is ravishing the human race. Now we have to pause to deal with yet again another act of hatred. What do we say to our sons and daughters as they watch this on TV, as they watch this on their tablets and on their phones? What do we say to them? Where do we go from here as a people, as human beings? I'm tired. I'm tired of the violence. I'm tired of sexism. I'm tired of bigotry. I'm tired of racism. Where's the love? Where's the love? Where's the compassion? Where's the kindness that we ought to have for one another? With this, I welcome you to the remedy. Welcome, family.
Welcome, Pastor D.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I want to start by asking you today, as we all have witnessed this together, what's going on in your mind right now? What's happening on your mind right now? We'll begin with you, Pat.
Hatred, anger, tiredness. The injustice is unheard of. It's unreal. It's systemic. Where do we start? 400 something years of the same thing. When is enough enough? I'm a pacifist. I believe in, let's look at the other way. And at this time, sadly to say, I can't say that. And sometimes I find myself yesterday saying to myself, why can't I say that? But I can't. And I was telling myself, well, you have a job, you have people that's going to look at you and what's the impact. But to be honest with you, this is beyond whatever impact. It's just not fair. And how long are we going to continue to be this way? What do we need to do to be equal, to be seen equally? What are we not doing? Just so many questions. It just the life that you set for your kid. I have a 21-year-old, and besides the regular, mom, I'm going here, I'm going there, and you worry about, okay, don't drink too much, don't this. You have to worry about him being black and being pulled over. When he's going out with his colleagues, I tell him, with his friends, I tell him, let your white friends drive. It's like, why, mom? I want to drive. No, because if your white friend drive, the likelihood of you being pulled over is less. And if you do get pulled over, the likelihood of something happening to you is less. And it should not be about that. I don't know what the answer is, but we need to do something that we have not been doing. It's just too much. And I know there are other members that need to talk, and I'm going to give them the forum to talk, but I just cannot be the passive Patty anymore. I just can't.
Woody, welcome to the remedy.
Thank you.
What's going on in your mind today?
So unlike Patty, I've never been a pacifist. frustration and the anger is probably equal, right? Like you sit and you think about all the things that you have done and all the things that you try to do and all the things that you want, and you see like that you're trying to think, has it really made an impact, right? Like has it really made a difference in what's happening? But you have to keep on fighting, and you have to like continue with hope, right? Because
Hmm.
you know, faith and fear can't live in the same room, right?
Hmm.
So we have to have faith and we have to fight. The system was set up this way. The system was set up for us to get discouraged and sit back and allow it to keep on happening to us. And what we're seeing in the street, and you know, I have to be honest, last night I went to sleep with police sirens and gunshots, you know what I mean, in my neighborhood. And it was, you know, disheartening because while I understand the fear and the frustration, I also know that we're doing it in our community.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of things that we can do. And I hope in this episode we could talk about some of those things that are small incremental changes that can be a ripple effect all over and in our communities.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Um, let's go to Jimmy. Jim, welcome to the remedy, my friend. What's going on in your mind today?
Well, regarding the event that just happened, um, when I saw the video, I heard the news and things. I saw the snapshots, but then somebody posted the video on Facebook, and I saw it for myself and saw everything that was transpiring. And as I see the things unfold, and um, like the you can see the life escaping the guys. I'm saying the guy is just the way I talk. Um, as you see the life escaping his body, and the dude is on his neck, and with no remorse, no regard. I mean, it's that's not something that you spontaneously do. That's practice.
Hmm.
um, Taking a life is not that easy. That's practice, and you're feeling that life escaping at your hands. And I was talking to my brother about it. I said, if I was in that, because people were trying to stop them. If I was in that situation and I had my weapons, I'd be rallying my friends. Hey, look, we're going to hold up these cops and make them get off, and we'll deal with the repercussions later. And that's the way I felt at the moment. You know, if I was there, go in my car, grab my AR-15, and we're gonna handle some business so we can save this life. And it's unfortunate that it has to be that way. It's unfortunate that we have to have these violent reactions just so that we're heard. And it's unfortunate that people are losing their lives when they're defenseless. And without going too much further, that's it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. We have very young people with us today. We have Wendy and Melody. Um, I'm sorry, and this is 2020, and you guys still have to witness this kind of behavior. I just want to know, as you were watching this, what are you guys feeling right now as you reflect upon what took place a few days ago?
Um, so it was kind of a continuation of what I had already known. Um, the first instance where I really remembered um, what it really was like to be Black in America was Trayvon Martin. Um, and I feel like that was even before I got the chance. I think that was the chance where I actually had a discussion with you and my mom um, about being Black right now, because you learn about Martin Luther King Jr. in school, and you learn about history and the gaining of rights that we've gotten, but you don't learn that there's things that are still happening. And then we get social media, and then we see it with our own eyes on video, um, over and over again. So it definitely started being quite disheartening. So much so that people in my school started a club so that we could decompress and talk about issues and try
Mm-hmm.
and find
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't know how to handle this, and our school honestly didn't know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
This just makes you feel helpless because you're learning in class that your ancestors fought so hard for your rights, just basic human rights. And then you're thinking, okay, well, they fought for our rights. We got some leeway we were giving them. But then you see young black boys and black girls being shot in the street because they seemed aggressive or they could have been grabbing for a weapon. And it's hurtful because it's like all the work that our ancestors put in for their rights is just being swept under the rug like it's nothing. Like there's no respect. And it feels like it's just a continuous cycle. Like this is like the third person I think just this month that I heard of being killed by a police officer for no reason. It's it's scary.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Um, Kels,
We can't read it, Kills. We can't read it. Well, you can't talk, so you're gonna have to tell us what it is.
I wrote it backward. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. My feeling on this is I have a newborn son, not newborn, but he's a 1 year old. You know what I mean? So a lot, I view things a lot differently. I got nephews, I got nieces. I don't want to make this just about males, but I got nieces and things of that sort, cousins, you guys, stuff like that. I can't sit here and just twiddle my thumbs and pray and hope that it doesn't happen to any of mine because, like Mendy and Mello was saying, we learn in history in classes in schools about how they've been fighting for the same things for years. And here we are in 2020, and the same thing is happening, even to the point where it's being covered up. Now, what we have that they did not have back in the day is technology. So technology is on our side because we're able to record things and put it out there before certain media outlets get a hand of it and chop it and edit it and put different voices on it and all that type of stuff. We're able to just record it and put it out there. But if we doing right, so to speak, whatever right is, if we doing right and you're still messing with us and you're still killing us, what steps do we take? It's not there's no direction to go now, but excuse my language, I'm not gonna curse on it, but F it. We gotta fight back now. We gotta fight back. And if you see some of the videos, there's one video I just saw this morning. A cop grabbed this one guy and he was trying to take him down and slam him, and a bunch of protesters who was there started fighting the cop. The cop got up and left. He said, "Forget it. I can't tackle this guy because there's more of us than them." And I'm not promoting violence because I don't even promote violence in my own house. However, I tell my daughter all the time, if someone's messing with you and you told them several times, leave me alone, or you walked away from the situation and they continue to mess with you, you have the right to do something now. And I feel like as African Americans, we are continuously getting messed with, and we keep talking peace and we keep talking, oh, in years. I know some people are saying, well, we got to get our money up to be on the same playing field. That's all that is cool, but it's going to take time. And in the time that that's happening, they still going to continue to do what they're doing. And that's where I have a problem with.
yeah, we're going to come back to a few things that you mentioned. We're going to talk about the time that it might take. We're going to talk about what we need to do in the meantime. But we also need to look at how many of you remember ever? We coming from a different perspective right now. Most of you came from Haiti, and so you migrate into the U.S. How many of you remember ever sitting there with your parents to receive the talk? I'm talking about not the talk about, the birds and the bees, but I'm talking about the talk where you receive from your parents to let you know what do you do when you get pulled over by the police. And how many of you remember ever that kind of conversation?
As in Haiti or as in here?
As in here,
Okay.
as in
I
here.
have to say, I never had that type of conversation, but I had similar type of conversation, and that has to do with you black, you need to be three times more educated. You when I go to work, I need to make sure my game is on five times more. So we've always had some kind of battle that we're fighting as a black person,
Hmm.
because it was never on the equal plane. Never. I have to take extra classes. I have to get extra things behind my name just so I can survive in the pharmaceutical field that I'm in, because it is definitely a white dominated field. And in order to survive, you have to have three times more letters behind your name just to have the same position as the white person that have one letter behind her name. So it was always a struggle, but the struggle becomes even more real when, as a parent, now you have to sit. My husband and I, on many occasions, and people have said specifically for our son to my husband, "Why are you so harder on LJ?" And Lewis said, "Because he's a black man in America." And
Hmm.
at the age of 8, Lewis had to sit him down and say, "This is what you do. This is what you do." And my son tends to have an anger. And we're like, "Listen, boy, if you see a cop, please put that anger aside. Do whatever. Keep your hands up." We talk about it constantly. And it's a constant conversation. However, to go back to what you're saying, now it's what we're seeing. It was always there. As girls have said, now we have technology. I've been discriminated on when I was driving in different part of the neighborhood as a
Hmm.
female.
Hmm.
But now we are seeing those cameras. The girls have said we've seen in history. The problem with us black, specifically in America, we think it's a history. It has not been just a history. It's
Hmm.
a constant thing. And
Hmm.
I'm just hoping that this is not something that, okay, we're so upset because so many things happened within the past 2 months. And then what, 2 months later, it dies down and we forget about it.
Hmm.
It's a constant struggle that we have to do something about. I'm with Markel. I'm not somebody that believe in killing and stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's no longer enough to just be okay with the inferiority of being black. I am not any less than anybody else.
Do you, Woody? I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Do you remember the first time that um you were called a nigger, or you had
Uh,
to deal with racism, and
yeah,
I mean as a person,
yeah.
not as a
So,
community?
yeah. So, I mean, I think for a really large part of my life, I was kind of shielded because of where I grew up.
Hmm.
In New Jersey, I went to private school. It was diverse, right? But then I realized that when I moved to Florida, um, I was getting followed in stores. You know, my friends and I just always had different encounters. But to answer your question, a few years ago, I work as a producer in film and television and advertising, and I had my assistant and a couple of PAs moving stuff from one set to another, and this ice cream truck comes and he's like yelling at them. He's like, "Move the truck!" And I come outside and I was like, "Sir, don't yell at them." And he's like, "Shut the fuck up, nigger." And this happened in New York City. And at that moment, it didn't matter that those guys were my subordinates. It didn't matter like how hard I worked. That's what he relegated me to.
Hmm.
And I yelled back something stupid like, "At least I'm not 60 years old driving an ice cream truck." But it didn't diminish him as a person, right? That's what I thought of at the time.
Hmm.
And when that incident happened, I found myself having to console my white assistant because he couldn't believe that he had heard somebody call his boss a nigger. And he was just like, I can't believe it. I'm so upset. And I was like, I'm going to tell you this. This is probably not the first time I'm going to hear this in my life. This is the first time you've seen it, but it's not the first time I had to deal with it. And, you know, I tell people that story because I'm like, this happened in so called liberal New York,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
we think that sometimes because we're in these cities that we're shielded. You know, the woman who called the cop on Christian Cooper was a liberal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And this idea that like because you check off certain boxes that you don't have pre um you don't have your own biases against people is ridiculous, you know. And the other thing that I do want to bring up is that like I know that we're talking about because it's fresher in our minds what happened to George Floyd, and he's a black man, and we saw what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. But we would be remiss not to have the talk with black women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Breonna Taylor, Atiana Jefferson, Sandra Bland, Pamela Turner, Corinne Gates, Yvonne Smith, Shelley Frey, Denisha Harris was 16 years old, Raika Boyd, um, and Ariana Shirley Jones was 7. They were all killed by police. All of them. All black women killed by police. So when we need to have that talk, it's not just about your black sons going out or our black sons or our black men going out into the world. It is also with our black women and girls. Because it's also, but the other undercurrent is that like sexual violence also happens to young black girls, and they're not taken seriously because they're sexualized or they're deemed to look older than they are. They ask for it, they dress differently. And so these conversations need to happen in our community, but we need to have them with young men and women.
Yeah. Um, Eddie mentioned that it seemed, let me see if I can read it. It says, I think one of the problem is that as a black person in America, we are fighting different battles at the same time. I think this is an important point to make. Um, they are all under the umbrella of racism, but we do find ourselves fighting different battles at the same time. You mentioned a few names. These women came from different backgrounds. They came from different neighborhoods, yet somehow they were all judged the same way by the color of their skins. These men who have been killed, same thing. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD or GED or no education whatsoever, you all get treated the same way. So I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm even asking the right question. When people look at us, there was a study that was done about perception. When people look at black people, okay, and they see white people, they wanted to find out, what are some of the automatic thoughts that goes at the back of people's mind, people who don't assume that they have those prejudices, or think that they're not racist. Yet the studies show that when you ask that question, what do you see when you see a black person? They mention poor, violent, religious, lazy, cheerful, and dangerous. That same study asks, what do you see when you see a white person? And the answers were wealthy, progressive, conventional, stubborn, successful, educated. So this is the mindset of what we have to deal with. And so we are fighting a war where it's not even a war that can be fought with weapons. I think I'm gonna go back to what Marker was saying. I'm gonna give my personal belief right now. I don't believe that this war on racism can be fought with weapon, because it's a fight of the and mind. It's a fight that goes deeper than anything that we know. It's a mind thing. We have to figure out a way to change the mindset of people. We have to figure out a way to change the heart of people. And unfortunately, I'm going to say it's unfortunate, but unfortunately, those things are not things that can be resolved in 1 minute or in one fight or in one battle. It's something that has to keep on going on and on and on. And we have to fight it in every areas of our lives. We need to do it through education. We need to do it in the different I would say facilities. For example, we need to fight with the government. When I say fight, I'm talking about changing the mindset. This is my opinion. I want to put it out there. I want to hear from you guys. How do you guys see the fight? How do you see us fighting this fight?
I'm gonna answer this real quick, and I'll leave it to the rest of the team. I totally agree with you that it is definitely something that we need to tackle with different venues per se. Um, we know that the number one thing that make change are policies, and I think you and I had this conversation yesterday. And unfortunately, we don't seem to have a lot of people our color. We do, but we don't seem to have a lot of people our color that are in the position to do policies. We do have some, don't get me wrong. Policies is the way you change things. However, historically in this country, what usually comes on before policies? Usually before policies is protests and riots and stuff. And that's usually what opened the eyes of many to even write the policies when you think of it historically. So does violence has a place? Yes. Do I want violence? No, I don't want violence. But historically, that's what usually eventually bring on the policies. I do think as Black people, every single one of us have an obligation to try to help each other out. If you are good in this arena, mentor somebody else. If you are good in this arena, mentor somebody else. Because what it comes down to is it's not only us changing the mind of white people, we need to first change our own mind. We need to feel like, hey, we are good enough for these people to accept us. Let me give you an example, and that starts with me. And I'm always thinking that I'm very good enough, whatever. When my kids were born, my first sentence were, I need to name my kids as white as possible because when I was in school, my name was Patricia Simon. And on many occasions, when I was in my honors class, when they call my name and they said Patricia Simon, I'm like, here. They look at me like, you're not Patricia Simon because my name was totally white. Like, why are you in an honors class? Okay. So I always feel like if you have the common Black names, you're giving your kids a disservice. That's what I used to think. But now I'm like, no, the Indians people have their name, they get respected. The Asian people have their name, they get respected. It shouldn't matter what we give our kids' name, they should still be respected. And that's something that I had to tell myself. It should not matter. It starts with me understanding whatever I need to do to understand that Black is beautiful, I need to do that. And then I need to let people know, not only do I know that I'm beautiful, you need to respect me because I'm beautiful and I'm on the same level as you. It's no longer acceptable for me to walk in the room and feel like I have to have 3 to 4 more degrees than you. So for me, that's been a fight that's real to me. And until I can actually do something about that fight, it's going to be hard for me to do the fight in the streets. That is extremely harder because I'm not in the streets. And I
Yeah.
need to then convey to people that we need to do those policies. But do we have enough people that understand and that can do those policies right now? That's also the problem.
Okay.
So the question was, what do we do to change the heart of certain people, right? I'm not gonna say all white people are racist because all white people are not racist, right? Jane Elliott did a study years ago. I can't exactly tell you what year it was, but her question simply stated to white people: if you want to be treated how African Americans are treated, to stand up. Nobody stood up. And why I bring that up is because they know how we're being treated. So it's not even a question of changing their hearts or anything of that sort. They know that we're being treated wrong, but they're not doing anything to stop that from happening because it's not affecting them. So because it's not affecting them, it really doesn't matter how we change their hearts. I have a couple white people that are cool with me. They know exactly what's going on. They may text me sympathy stuff and things of that sort. They understand they're heartfelt, but it's not changing anything. So when we sit here and try to talk about, how can we change their hearts, they know. They in their hearts, they know. But they're not gonna risk their life, their kids' life, their generational lives to be the first ones to change the cause of what's happening to African Americans. They're not. They're not gonna mess up their dollar trying to protect African Americans. So us trying to change their heart, I don't really see what that does for anything.
Um, I think the approach that it has to be a multi-pronged approach, and to an extent, I agree with the no justice, no peace, and to an extent, I agree with what you said, PD. Um, I don't necessarily mean violence. Even with my example in the beginning, when I said I was upset and I would have drawn my gun on the police to subdue them, but it's to a point where somebody mentioned in the comments that they're bullies. You have to be able to stand up to them and tell them, "Well, look, we're not going to be messed with anymore." And once they start understanding that we're not going to be messed with anymore, then we become a voice that they're going to have to start to listen to. And then we have to, and while we're defending and protecting ourselves from the physical and the racial attacks and gaining the respect on those fronts, then we are at the same time we got to be infiltrating the politics with our intellectuals,
Mm-hmm.
infiltrating the market with our money, because we have the black community has a lot of money, and we have to do the thing, and so we have to face the bullies, correct the politics, and use our money, um, and influence the power of our money, because we I just say we generally, not everybody, but we just throw our money at the easiest thing to throw our money at, and we don't invest in ourselves, in general. We don't invest in our own communities, and even and we're letting, and we we are was it, I want to say disenfranchised, but that's not the exact word I want to say. We pretty much we're a commodity.
Mm-hmm.
We're a commodity. We're our votes, our money. People know exactly where that's going to go. And that's like you said, the other communities they support themselves, you know. And you go into, there's a Chinatown, there's Indian communities, there's all these different communities, and those communities thrive. And there, but why do we have to go into these neighborhoods and it's a poppy store or a Chinese store or something like that? Why can't we go into a neighborhood and it's a Mama Papa Jones store? I'm just being very generic. And we go there. Why can't we have those type of things? So it's multi-level attacks that we have to do in order to gain our place in the society.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something? I feel like there's like a bullet points of things that I want to address. So please forgive me. One, it is not our job to change the hearts and minds of racist white people. Okay, we know
I
that
totally agree. Totally
racism
agree.
exists. We have done. I look at like again. I'm gonna bring up back to something that is more current. Christian Cooper is the epitome of like what we're told we're supposed to be, quote unquote, in Black society. He was an educated man walking around a park looking at birds. And that lady didn't see any of that. You heard from the tenor and how he spoke. He was, quote unquote, articulate in how he spoke. He was calming, he didn't raise his voice. But in any of that, she didn't see his humanity, she saw his blackness. And so while we're having this discussion, white people need to have this discussion in their homes. They need to have it amongst themselves. Where have they failed in this system of oppression? What have they have been giving? You know, there's a the I think it's like the Corporate Economic Development and Institute of Policy and Studies said that for Black families to gain as much wealth as white people, it's going to take us so that we can be equal. It's still going to take another 228 years. For Latino families, 84 years. They need to deal with the oppression and racism that they have, and also how it benefits them, the privilege that they have of their skin color. Because that privilege, they need to now speak and fight. I said something last night on the phone with some people I was on after our call, and I was like, I'm sitting back and seeing all of my friends who are white. What are they saying? Because I may need to cut some people off. I'm not saying you need to say, you know, at least say it's wrong. At least say, how can I help? At least pick up a phone and call your city council member. So there's that. The other thing that I want to bring up is local policies that affect us directly in our tax dollars is a great way for us to start. It's not an unintangible thing. Find out when your city council meeting is. Know who your public advocate is.
Mm-hmm.
Know who
Mm-hmm.
your if it's an alderman, know who your mayor is. Find out when those meetings are, and if you can make them know who you are, the better, because they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You know, there are a lot of changes that's happened in my community where we now have composting in Clinton Hill. Why? Because people went every week to those city council meetings and said that that was important to them, right? They didn't riot in the street. They didn't protest. They were there in their face and said, this is what's important to us. There used to be a party in Fort Greene Park every Sunday, and it was during the summer, and it was a good party. It was like, so it was house music, and people had a good time. People came into the neighborhood and said, well, at 6 o'clock, I want to put my kids to bed on Sunday. So now there's that party isn't there anymore. While other people got upset and yelled, they went to city council meetings and let their voices be heard. And so we have to there fill out your census, make people accountable for the policies that affect your neighborhood. I pay a lot of taxes. I have no kids. I pay a lot of taxes. I want to make sure that those taxes are going to the schools in that neighborhood. What are you doing? Why do I still have a pothole? Why is it that, like, in the winter, snow is being swept up or cleaned up faster in the Upper East Side, but Brooklyn is like the last or whatever? I called. I was like, "Yo, what's up? If you can't make these changes, stop taking 40% of my tax of my income weekly."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so the last thing I will say is this, because I feel like I'm going on a rant and I don't want to go on a rant and monopolize. Many years ago, I met Melvin Van Peebles, and I said, what is something that you would like to tell people? And he said, I want to tell Black kids they can before someone else tell them they can't. And so we are better than what they are making us out to be.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? We are smarter, we are better. And while I understand the frustration of what's happening, those are small incremental changes that we can make to make an impact in our community and our churches. Our churches need to step up.
Yeah, we're gonna go to that. Wendy and Melody, you guys needed to say something. I didn't want to forget.
So basically, me and Wendy go to like a very multicultural school. Like, our whole school district is like very diverse, and I think that we're better for it because we did have Black kids and we did have kids from other cultures, and like we were able to come and like have understandings. But for a long time, it kind of felt like I was, well, in my classes at least, like I would be the only Black girl, and I had to speak up for injustices myself. Especially when Mike Brown happened, I think that was kind of a wake up call to like how other people thought.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I got mad at a lot of people um, because I couldn't figure out like why I was the only one speaking out. And I had to like basically sit down with a lot of my multicultural friends and be like, I can't be your friend if you're not going to stick up for me and stick up for my race. And it's continuing now. Like we cannot be Americans until we're all viewed as equal.
Mm.
Like there's no sense of nationality if not everyone's equal, and that comes with everyone joining in on the fight. It's not just Black people. Other races need to understand that this is an American problem. This is a world problem. We need to fix it together, and they need to be able to stick up for us as well.
I wanna read something to you guys, and you can tell me what you think. This is a quote from um, David Williams, and let me just make sure that everyone can see it. David Williams made a quote that had me think for a while, made me think for a while. This is what he said. He said, when a police officer overreacts when he sees an unarmed black male and perceive him to be violent and dangerous, we are not necessarily dealing with a bad cop. We may be simply viewing a normal American who is reflecting what he has been exposed as a result of being raised in this society. This is what I mean by saying we are fighting a very, it's a war in the mind. And unless, and listen, I give everybody the chance to share how they feel, what they think we should do, and I thank you guys. But I still feel that this battle, since it's a battle of the mind, has to be won in the minds and in the hearts of people. Someone earlier mentioned that we've been doing this for 400 years, and he had me thinking for a little bit. Taj Mahal, I don't know if that's your real name, but he said we've been dealing. I'm going to put this up, okay? He says we have been spending. We spent over 500 years
Right.
trying to pray and change their hearts. So does it mean that we don't pray anymore so that their hearts will be changed? Does it mean that violence is the only way that change will take place? Or is it a combination of all of those things? I want us to be able to really think about this deeply. Do we need a combination of all those things together? Welcome to the remedy, Eddie.
What's going on,
Eddie's
everybody?
ready. Eddie's ready.
Rudy,
Too
what's
bad I
wrong?
can't hear him.
Girl, hold on, I'm in the background waiting. So, first of all, fat shout outs to my boy Taj. That is his real name, y'all. I know him. He's real cool people. And he's one of the types of people that we need to move this, help move this thing forward. I don't see. I think what we're looking for is the solution, and it's very difficult to look for a solution for what we're experiencing is the effect of something that has multiple hands, multiple pots. When PD, you talked about, the gentleman made a quote about when a police officer sees, et cetera, et cetera. Part of that is true, but also part of that is, and I know this for a fact, there are police stations that have issued trainings, special trainings on how to deal with the black people, and that they are more aggressive than the other races, and that they are, a higher risk when you're dealing with them, which is why systematically, which is a very important word we need to make sure that we put out there, systematically, when you notice cops pull up and it's a black person behind, they always ready. I have yet to see when you see another race and you see cops from the offset are as aggressive as they are when they're dealing with black people. And it doesn't matter if it's a young black person, whether it's a boy or girl. I've seen police get called to a scene, and and this just happened the other day, that they were called to a scene. There was a white man who his wife happened to be a black woman. These cops jumped out their vehicle and literally attacked this black woman. I'm talking about blow for blow on this black woman. We have to look at it from the multi standpoints of why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. First and foremost, just to backtrack, I can't say I agree with the rioting, but I also can't say that rioting is bad. I believe that in certain circumstances you do need to fuck some shit up, because certain behemoths, certain monsters, they don't understand anything other than when you retaliate with what their language is. Now, that's not to say by breaking into the CNN building or breaking into Gucci store is how we hurt their pockets necessarily. I mean, granted, I don't think, the rioting that we're seeing, I don't think majority of it is organized.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of unorganized chaos, which makes sense why here in Atlanta they was like, hey, let's go into the Gucci store. There's all these other stores here. Why do you want to go to Gucci? We have to look at it from all the different points that's affecting us and why we do the things that we do. And we got to stop looking at it from the point where, well, like I did, this is the comment that I've been seeing a lot of people make, like, look at you guys rioting, like how that's going to solve the problem. You can't look at it from that point of view. You're looking at it and saying, oh, how's that going to cause change? You don't understand. When we riot, what we're doing right now, we don't care for change right now. We're just causing a stop. This is pent up aggression that is happening right now. So you can't say, well, how are you going to defend your cause by rioting? That's not the point. We have to look at it. I think Jimmy mentioned it, and Rudy mentioned it as well. Like, there's a lot of different things that's happening, and there's a lot of different things that's affecting us. And if our job is to force that change to come about, we have to build our system as well. We have to have our teachers that are black doing, I mean, what Rudy said, I literally shouted when she said what her friend goal was to tell a black, I mean, think about a black kid that's watching this transpire right now. And even worse, think about it if that black kid, that young kid that are these girls' age that watched this happening, the riots and the fight backs didn't even take place. They would accept this as norm. They would literally believe, hey, black people die and get shot by cops. And it's not just the race thing. That's the cornerstone. It's the system that allows it to take place. That's what we're really fighting. It's the fact that you can put your knee on somebody's neck after they plead for help, and your police officer buddies don't do anything to stop it. It's the fact that we see that this man died, and it still took days for them to arrest you guys. He was fired and sent home, and the police district was sent to his house to protect him. That's systematic moves that's being done to continue to allow our oppressors to put us in the position that we are. So it takes all facets. We got to learn how to lobby. We got to learn who our local people are and support those. We got to stop waiting for Obama to be president, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna vote Obama. You didn't know about Obama from before. You waited to the last minute to vote for this man. Not to say he was good or he was bad, but you should have been knew about Obama. We should have been supporting him. We should have been the ones pushing him up into that campaign. Not just, oh, P. Diddy said do it, Oprah said do it, so hey, I'm about it. And maybe not stop voting for what you think historically you're supposed to vote for. Vote for what you know is going to work for you and your family and your race in your communities. We have to have developers. One of the numbers escape me right now, but one of the largest reasons why African Americans are so behind when it comes to generational wealth is because we don't pass down any real estate. When you look at other people, other races, typically they have a home, they lived in it, they paid it off, or they died before they paid it off, and their kids inherit that home. It ends up getting paid off, and they now have equity. In our communities, we don't necessarily have the same amount that allows us for us to do that. And so now the easy answer is to say, well, why don't we have that? But we can't just answer that like that. There's things that are in place that causes for Black people not to be able to have and own their own homes. You can look up redlining and figure out those things. There's companies that if you go to get credit and you type in your zip code, based off of your zip code, they
Yeah.
can understand who you are, the
Yeah.
type of people that you are, and they lower your credit score to not allow you to be able to get the better home or to even buy the home that you're in. That's systematic racism that is continuing to be bled, and that's what we have to fight. I don't think we can get rid of racism. Just plain and simple. I think that's a humanistic thing, and that's why I do agree with some of the comments. I think it's stupid to try to say, hey, we need to force them to change. I'll pray for you, but I'm not trying to force you to change. You want to change, I'm happy for you. You don't want to change, I'm also happy for you. You like it, I love it, buddy. Let's keep rocking.
And Eddie, I agree with what you said, and definitely what some of what Woody said and some of what Jimmy said in that. And I think I also mentioned it's a personal education, and if you know it, spread it on. Before we can do something about what truly is happening here, we need to educate ourselves and trying to find out what else we can do for each other. If you know more about how to do generational wealth, then you know what? Teach somebody else. If you know more about compost, teach somebody else. It is definitely something that we can't look at the enemy and say it's all about the enemy. The way to win is to become so powerful ourselves where the enemy cannot win. And the way to become powerful is to look within and see, okay, what else can we do? Look at some of the stuff that Eddie have said, some of the stuff that Jimmy have said. Go and talk when your voice matters. But I also believe from historical, we need protest. However, we need healthy protest because not everybody can have a say in their departmental election or so forth and so on. Healthy protest is also one way you can do it, not by rioting, but healthy protests in every state. When people see you standing up for something, they start hearing you while you standing up. Then you go and talk to your neighborhood and try to do some of that. Some people, because they work, they cannot ever make those things. But
So I have to interject. I'm sorry. You can protest, but everyone has a voice. Listen, if your city council meeting meets once a month, you don't have to go every month.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mhm.
You can send a letter, you can send an email, you can make a call while you're at work. Right? If it meets twice a month, you can send a representative. So the idea that like those things don't make a change. Listen, I was at a
no, they do make a lot of changes.
so what I'm saying is that like this protest, it's in conjunction, right?
Yeah,
No,
but
it's together.
Woody, you mentioned a healthy protest, and there we go again. I got a quote here from Kate, and she said, "Healthy protest requires a healthy mind," and
I,
that
I
we
sorry.
don't have. And I think that goes back to what Eddie is saying as well. We need to know what is it that we want? What is it that we are fighting for? What do we need to do to educate ourselves so that we can put ourselves in a position of power where our actions can be matched with our finances? You understand what I mean?
I do. Unfortunately I couldn't hear Eddie, but what I'm saying is this: is that like when I'm saying it's a balance, I'm saying that like you can protest in the street, but your voice can be heard. Black people, we only make what 13% of the population.
Agreed.
When it comes to small businesses, we're 7% of that. 7% of that. Do you know how long the black dollar stays in our community? The
Agreed.
black dollar stays 6 hours. In the Asian community, it stays a month. In
Mhm.
white communities, it stays over 20 days. Those are incremental changes that we can do and be purposeful. We have power with our money and our voice. Listen, I believe in protest, right? And also, I'm not going to sit here and sanitize and say, like, there's this meme that's going around that's just driving me crazy. That's like of Martin Luther King, and it's like, this is protest and this isn't. Like, let's be clear. You know what I mean? Like, he was beaten and killed during a peaceful
Mm-hmm.
protest,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like he also said that a riot is the voice of the unheard, right? So he understood what that was. But what I'm saying is that like we can't like I understand that like I am of a privileged place. I don't have to work overnight. I don't have to work on weekends. And so maybe I can go to a city council meeting, but you can make one. You can make a phone call. You can write an email. You can go on their social media and at them and tell them what it is that needs to affect your community. You can fill out a census. You can make yourself be heard. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to continue to fight. Like, you know, I can go ahead and protest, but guess what? I can act the whatever. Like a friend of mine yesterday, I posted something, and she added Amy Klobuchar and Joe Biden in my post. Like, what y'all gonna do? She
You
didn't leave
know,
her out. You know what I'm saying? So
the,
and I agree. And one more, Patty, one more thing. I agree that each one teach one, right? Like if I know how to write a business plan and somebody's starting a business, we should be able to do that. If you look at what happened in the Cuban community in the 80s during the Mariel, that's what they did. That's why Cubans were able to flourish in Miami, right? And so I do believe in that. But I think like we have to look at a multi-pronged approach while knowing that we're
agreed.
not a monolithic group.
Agreed.
And so whatever it is that you can do and make impactful changes in your community, do it. There's a learning annex. I think it was in 1970. I can't remember the mayor in Atlanta who, when they were building that airport, he was like, okay, y'all going to build this airport. You need to do construction. These contracts need to go to Black people in this community. That's one of the reasons why you have generational wealth in Atlanta, because that's something that he did. So we have to go after government contracts. If I have a government contract, Patty, I'm gonna show you how to fill out this form so that you can get a government contract. There's a learning annex on real estate. Sign up. You know what I mean? And so like there are different ways that we can be active in our community that is accessible to all of us, no matter where you work, what you do, what your age is, and what your financial background is. So.
I totally agree, and it's a multifaceted approach. There's some of it that's going to take a long time. There's some of it that needs to be now. Like I said, healthy protest is something that we need right now because this is a major issue, but it has to be healthy. If it's not healthy, we're only hurting ourselves. It has to be healthy. Another thing that I've always thought about, specifically kids that are from, I said 15 to about 25. If each Afro-American stop buying sneakers for 6 months, stop, it will go a long way. Do not buy any for 6 months. It would go a long way because that generation mostly buy a lot, and they're mostly not the one that's going to go to trying to talk in a meeting. But that power itself will go a long way. There's so many things we can do as a group that can go a long way. However, I think a lot of it goes back to education. There's a lot that we don't know to do for ourselves. And I'm going back to re-educating each other because to me, that's where it starts. Helping each other understand.
You're not talking like a formal education. You're just talking about education.
No, not formal education. I'm talking about helping each other. If you have this knowledge, help me understand, help me know where to go. Just help us understand so that we can be better. We can grow. We can make a difference because it's not going to come from the other side. I understand that the other side needs to understand that they have oppressed us and all that great stuff. But you know what? I can't worry about that. I need to worry about how to cultivate my people so that a decade from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we can tangibly see that we have made a difference toward this cause. That unfortunately it is systemic oppression and a systemic injustice.
One of the things to your each one teach one and also supporting one another. Um, it's when you talk about education, that's something that is very, very, very important because we tend not to trust one another. Um, so if I'm a person who has made it in my it made it in my career or whatever, or have knowledge that I want to share. A lot of times you're looked at as distrust, um, because what's this what's this permit music? What's this nigga gonna tell me that I don't already know? Because even if you're coming from a position of I have this knowledge, um, and it's really prevalent in the Haitian community because this is the community that I live in. So because I'm not the Moon Blanc, um, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we end up having we end up turning away the resources that we could have in our communities because we don't trust the source. And back to and even supporting business this is my own personal thing. I started a nonprofit about 4 or 5 years ago to help young people in the cities to be able to go out, to get out into the wilderness, and it's not just white people things. We go out there, we hike, we canoe, we backpack, we do all these things, and the kids that I'm able to get out there, they love it. And this is mostly out of pocket from myself or from volunteers. And I look at, I reach out and try to get people to support and to donate, and it's always crickets, and it's always crickets. There's never. I even tell people, like, just share this. I don't. If you don't have the money, that's fine. Just share this. You don't have to do anything but share it. You get maybe 5 shares out of 400 people or plus people on your social media. And I'm not doing it to get rich. I mean, I'm spending my own money to get your kids out to expand their minds. And you should see the transformation that these young people have when they realize that the world doesn't encompass just the four corners of their block.
Right.
And they get out there and they see the bigger picture, and they have bigger aspirations. And another thing, too, I kind of half jokingly, half serious said this to Markel once. Like, when you know somebody has a skill, um, use it. Make a note. If you don't know what you're gonna do about it with it later, just take a note. Like, Markel graduated marketing, and I reminded myself when I was talking to him. I said, "You graduated marketing, right?" He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "How come I haven't exploited you yet?" Like, when I say exploit, it just means that, like, how come I haven't um asked you for help in your expertise? And I tell a lot of my young people that are in college, I'm gonna exploit you. I send them to people for references. I send them to interviews. I know somebody who's in the field. I ask them to be mentors for them and things like that. So those are the kind of things that we have to engage in, that incrementally we can spread the knowledge so that we can be better.
I agree.
So I just want to say something
Go
real
ahead,
quick.
Mark.
Jimmy said something I say a lot when I'm talking to most of my family and things of that sort. And sometimes they agree, and sometimes they say, it's not necessarily their responsibility. But now it's kind of sounding like, as African Americans, we are saying it's other African Americans as well as ourselves responsibility to help and teach and do things to help us get from under and into the black market, black economy, things of that sort, right? So I just looked up something, and it's a website, and I could be wrong, but I haven't done all the research on it. But on the website, Business Insider, there are 607 billionaires in the United States. Out of those 607 billionaires, five of them are African American. Out of those five that are African American, two of them came from sports and entertainment, and then the other one also came from entertainment. So when we look at the black culture and we think about how we can get money, that's why most of the young people think I got to play ball, or I got to get a jump, or I got to do music in order to make enough money so I could get out of the ghetto, get out of the situation that I'm in right now. But my question, I always state, I think it is possible that we can do if those millionaires and those billionaires that are up there are the ones that use their money to do things like open the black grocery store, open the, I know, they said LeBron James opened up a school and things of that sort. Open up some more schools that allow African American children's different type of education, not history lessons and stuff like that, like different type of curriculum that change us and teach us from going forward. But now the question is it their responsibility to do that? And are we saying yes? And if that's the case, why have they not been doing that yet?
Well, Kels, real quick. So going back, I actually mentor some kids as well, and that percentage always come across. But you know what I usually tell them? It's great that they are billionaire. It's very good, and I appreciate it. But what's the percentage? Because yes, people do look up to musicians and athletes. Because unfortunately for us Black people, that's usually where we make our best. We do our best. But the percentage of people that actually make it versus the percentage that do not make it. We need to worry about the percentage that do not make it and then trying to do something for yourself. Now, the other part of your question is a lot of them are doing. We do know that Oprah has a lot of stuff in Africa. A lot of them are doing. But because the percentage is so small, it becomes our responsibility to each other. Because that percentage that have it, it's a very minute percentage. And it becomes our own responsibility to teach and help and make a difference. I am very big in giving back. I help as much as I can because I personally believe I am nothing if I don't give back. But that's my personal belief. I can't make everybody think the same. And giving back could be where you just monitor and you mentor one child. If you have more, you can do. But if everybody does their part, and it goes back, and I keep on saying, and I think Eddie had put something about the sneakers and stuff like that. It goes back to re-education. I remember my husband telling my son, because he loves sneakers, if you take that money and you actually put it in a bank account and you sit it somewhere or you put it in some stocks. So there are ways that you can make people understand, hey, you know what? We are Blacks. We do love wearing kicks, this and that and that and this. I get it. Everybody has to have their thing. However, when you look at the other nation and what they value as wealth, before they go and have all these different things, we need to start thinking that way. We need to start teaching our kids that way. When my kids were young, at the age of 8 or 9, during the summer, there was some kind of, I know the county schools usually have some kind of, cooking and stuff like that. I didn't put them in that because my husband taught them how to cook. I put them in a financial class at the age of 8. Because I wanted them to understand what finance is about. I wanted them to know how to bounce a checkbook. And these are the kind of stuff we need to re-educate our mind. We didn't have it because we didn't know any better. Now that we know better, we need to start re-educating every single one of our kids and neighbors. Because it starts with this. Until we have this, we are perpetually going to stay in that circle and going to feel sorry for ourselves. And people are going to think about us the way they think about us, as a failure.
So it's funny you say that, Patty, because I just say one. So I have my nephew who loves a certain brand, right? And I was like, I told him for his birthday, I said, I'm not buying you that brand. I'm going to buy you stock in that brand. Because my thing is that, like, if you love it so much, let's try to make some money out of it in the future.
That's right.
And so a couple things that, like, we can also do is, it is financial literacy. It is talking about, we don't enough talk about generational wealth. You know what I mean? And that also comes from owning property. And so, from a lot of people who live, for instance, in New York in particular, people think like, oh, they're like wealthy, they came to New York. No, that's generational wealth. We're not going to talk about like how the home, like if we want to talk about institutionalized, like the Homestead Act, look that up, everybody, of 1862 and what that did to the West. That white people were given 160 acres of land to, and all you had to do was work on it. Also, look up the land grant act. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
those people, parents, grandparents had homes, then they put equity into those homes. They used those homes, and that's how they started whatever business and life that they have now today. And so we need to talk about generational wealth. And you know, earlier when I was saying like education, it is easier. You know, it's education is a tough thing because I can see why somebody I can see why Oprah made a lot of money. I can see why Michael Jordan has a jump shot, right? But when we're talking about people who are billionaires in the Black community, people like to see the tangible reasons why they are that, right? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And not every kid is going to be MJ. Not every kid is going to be LeBron, right? You can dream. Hey, you could do it. But what's the fallback plan? And I think that's something else we need to talk about. Like, what is plan B if that doesn't happen? Are you going to be a coach? Are you going to be in sports medicine? What is it that you can do are you going to start a basketball camp? Like, what can we do that is the plan B? The other thing is that we can't rely on rich people to save us. We can't. We can't put the pressures on, like, well, what is such and such doing in the community? What are you doing in the community?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm
I'm
not
not
doing
saying
it.
that. I'm not saying that you're saying that, but people
Okay.
do, and we have to. And like it's a double-edged sword because it's like, well, why they gotta boast what they're doing or they not doing enough? And there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that we don't know,
Agreed.
but we have to hold ourselves accountable and being able to help each other and not rely on rich people.
And I think that's all I've been saying this whole time. We have to hold ourselves. If each one of us do something, trying to get the help, and we just have to do. There's a lot of us. We have to hold ourselves accountable. If somebody else want to come along and help, that's great. But it starts with you, every single one of you, every single one of us. How can we make a difference?
Well,
Whether
so
that difference in the
we're
way
getting
that Jim is doing
profession.
it.
I,
I'm
I
sorry.
want to change. I want to change gear for a little bit. Um, this is a Christian show, and so I want to make sure that at the end of the day, that we turn back to the ideal what God wants for us. And so, what I want to ask to the panel right now is we have lots and lots of churches and lots of communities, and they've been around for hundreds of years. Some have grown to the point they have become mega churches. And our people are mostly religious people, yet we are still in bondage. The system kept us in bondage. What role does the church play in breaking that bondage? Obviously, the church cannot, I'm going to repeat this, okay? Cannot um, um, tell people to pick up their guns and go shoot. The church cannot endorse that. The church has a message that is different from the world. So I'm saying this to you guys because I know most of you are also Christian. What do you think as we move forward now? How should the church respond as we are moving forward to help our community? We're going to start with you, Jimmy.
The church has kind of like a default platform and a default audience, and an ability to reach into a community. And with that, if they have been doing their job since the beginning and within their communities, they can use that default platform as an educational platform,
Hmm.
to be able to tell people what their rights are, tell people what's available to them, help people get out of the situations that they're in, and I'll let and meet those social political needs that they have, instead of just brow beating them up with the Bible all day. Because even if we follow Christ's ministry, like we mentioned in previous shows, we have to meet them at their needs, and it's not only just hunger; it's this that's happening, this oppression that they're facing. So if we can tell them, look, gather our community on certain days, and we bring them in and we talk to them. We tell them, if you want to, this is where your representative offices. If you have this issue, this is the number you're supposed to call. If you don't, if you're afraid to call them on your own, come over here and we'll have one of our social activists, or community service, in our church is called community service. That director help you to be able to articulate what it is you're trying to say in a letter or anything like that. Are you having issues with money? Are you having issues with? Do you have somebody that's wrongfully imprisoned? What are those things? Because we have this big platform and these big buildings that we just want to fill with believers, but we have all these people that are hurting out there in more ways than one that we can reach out to and educate.
I think. I
Go
think.
ahead, man.
Oh, go ahead, Miller.
So I think something that I feel like is kind of overlooked, especially like by the Haitian community, because that's like the church that I go to, is that the church is a community center, um, and so it should include people from the community, and it should be serving the community. Um, and there's like he was saying, that there's different ways that you can do that. Like you can provide a space for people to meet and talk and decompress and give guidance to each other. Like it's supposed to be a place where people can meet and um, really like plan, if anything. Like we can learning about financial stability and generational wealth that can be taught in the church. Like the church historically wasn't just about your spiritual needs.
Yeah, but I think what I'm trying to say is I believe that the only way, again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, the only way that we can genuinely eliminate racism is for Christ to dwell in the hearts of people, because racism is hatred, hatred toward people who are different than you. Okay. So if that's the case, okay, the government can pass laws, but as you know, laws can be passed, but the more laws you have, it means the worse your society is. It's not the other way around. So it's not that we need more laws so that the society will be better. No, in fact, it's the opposite. The less law we have, the better that society is, because we begin to value one another. What I'm trying to say is, shouldn't the church be educating um, its members to reflect this message, that message of love is not just love those who are the same. Okay, the church is good in teaching us love those who come inside of this building and look like you, smell like you, talk like you. But anyone who is different than you, stay away from them, because they are evil. But in reality, those are the one who needs to see Jesus in us. Those are the one who needs to see the gospel in us. I don't know if the church loses its focus and attempts to resolve this myriad of injustice in this world by through legislation. I think we are heading in the wrong direction.
I think.
I want to say something, and I kept my mouth shut for the church part because
Maybe
pers-
there's a reason, Pat. Go ahead.
personally for me, like I said, I guess I grew up Catholic, and one of my major resentment with Catholicism is during slavery time, or even during slavery time, where it was like God intended for you to be slave. Now you have to understand, the church is a business. The business has a lot of ties with politics. So because of that, I have found that a lot of the time when it comes to racism, the church usually doesn't have much to say because it's usually tied to politics and it's usually tied to its pockets.
But the real church, Pat, the real
Where
church,
is the real church?
no. But there is a real church. There is a real church. There are a lot of churches out there, but there is a real church with a real mission. The real church is the Bible says, "My kingdom is not of this world. The kingdom of God is within me. I am that church." And so my message is to spread love however I can. You mentioned slavery earlier. Slavery, the way it was designed, that was satanic. That's not from the Bible.
Well, they
It,
brought it to the Bible. They actually, if you read, there were some verses that were quoted.
I'll give you some verses right now. When we talk about slavery, if you go to Colossians 3, verse 20 right now, right? It says, "Servants obey in all things your master according to the flesh."
And
With
they put that in our mind and they told us it was okay to do
But
that.
the Bible also said that God will punish the unjust as well as reward the faithful servant. So if you have a master who was unjust to you, there's such a thing as an unjust master, which means there's also a just master. Jesus called us to be servant, but you see how he deals with us. He doesn't deals with us and abuse us. A just master will not abuse his servants.
I think that the church should be there for us. What I'm saying is the church has not been there for us.
And
So
I
hold on,
agree. Go ahead, Woody.
hold on. Because my thing, I also grew up Catholic. I left the Catholic religion a really long time ago. And so when you talk about Catholicism and the
No, but it's
Vatican,
not just
hold on,
Catholicism. When I say
I'm
the church,
not,
not just
I'm not,
Catholicism.
hold on, I'm not attacking them. That is a business, right? Because Vatican City is an incorporated city. So when you are talking that it is a business, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I also went and tried to, and I remember when I moved to New York, I went to a lot of different churches. The churches that I'm at now fulfills me not only not my spiritual need, but for the need to do work in the community. So there are churches that are doing that. There's something that's called souls to the polls. That during the election season and other seasons, churches have buses that take people and inform them on how to vote, register, and go and take them to the polls. My current church has a impact ministry, which means how they can help the community, book bag drives, foods, talks for the elderly, checking in on the elderly, a social justice reform ministry that fought for bail reform in New York City, that bailed out people who had small bails during the Christmas, Mother's Day, and Father's Day. They have a health and wellness ministry. They have a whole bunch of other ministries. Check it out, UBC Emmanuel Baptist Church in Brooklyn. They have a whole bunch of ministries that have been impactful in the community. So you have to find the right church. There are churches
Correct.
that are doing that, right?
Correct.
There are churches that are doing the work. But
I want to read. I want to read a quote. This is taken from Sister Kate, who just said this to me. She said the church. She feels that the church right today, the church is afraid to tackle racism because these days, as some of you mentioned, it's a big business, and so they are afraid to lose money. It's not like the churches back then, back in the day, where it was again. Here's the word again, where it was a community that was there to support, a community that was there to love, a community that was there to
Pastor D,
so,
a
that's exactly
community
what
that
I'm
was there
saying.
to stand up for the right
But that's
of this.
exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying that the church to me is so tied to politics that when it comes time, how many of our church leaders, black church leaders, have you heard say anything about what's going on right now?
well, that's what. Hold on, wait a minute. Hold on. I've heard a lot, but maybe I'm in a different things. But what I'm trying to say is that like churches do have power. There's a reason why there was a decree, quote unquote, that was last week that churches must open, right? They have lots of, like, there's a reason why Paula White goes to the White House, right? There's a
Hmm.
reason
Yeah.
why, like, whatever. So they do have power. They just don't want to touch the race issue. When
Well,
it comes
that's
to
what I'm
abortion
saying. They
or
have power, but
do
are
have
they going to exercise it for that topic? No, power they do have. Will they exercise it for that specific topic?
that,
Most of the time, they choose not to.
right, because it doesn't benefit them. That's the point that I'm trying to get to all the
No,
way through.
but I agree. But I'm answering Pastor D that's saying, should the church? Yes,
Yeah.
the church should.
So
Do the church do it? No.
so
Most
Rudy
of the time, they
Rudy
don't.
just said a term that when we talk racism, and that is exactly what white people do. White people aren't going to speak up or say anything, even though it's wrong. They feel it's wrong because it doesn't benefit them.
Benefit them.
So when the church have political issues at hand at their doorstep, they won't speak up, and more than likely they'll give you and I pray about my spirituality a lot because I'm not lingering in faith. I know who the most high is, but sometimes when things don't get answered, I often say, God, what is happening? And that bothers me. So I still try to find the right answer. But to go back to what I'm saying, when the church is faced with stuff and they don't stand for something or pick a side, and they just say, pray about it, or something of that sort. That's not really giving the
Thank you.
community what they're
Thank
looking
you.
But here's the root of that. Here's the root of the problem. When a church decide they're gonna become tax exempt, I think
Uh-huh.
sometimes we tend to forget. When you make a choice as a pastor to turn your church into an establishment that is tax exempt, you are saying from this day forward, you cannot endorse anything politically. That is the reason why the church, when it comes to using their platform to bring someone politically, they really can't. Their hands are tied because we they rely on that tax exempt so that they can
But
not pay
Pastor
taxes or
D,
whatever.
the
So there's
question
other
that
issues going on behind the
yeah,
scene when it comes to that.
but the
How many of
question
those
that you
churches are really,
asked was, should they? Yes, they should. Do they? Most of the time, they do not, and I have an issue with that because whether you tax exempt, not tax exempt, when I think of church, I think of some entity following that Bible. And if that Bible is saying this should be seen wrong, it doesn't matter what your political tie is. It should be that this is wrong. And at least for me, that's what I expect. Is that what I get? No, but that is what I expect.
so we're
Mhm.
so we're acting that like church and religion and politics has not been intertwined since the beginning of time, right? Like it's been intertwined. It's been
Absolutely, absolutely.
we're trying to act like it's not. There is no, we try to act like there is a separation of church and state, and there isn't. My thing, and this is, it's I said this yesterday. The other thing that we need to talk about that we never talk about, and Monty, you kind of touched on it. Those same Christians use the Bible to oppress people of color. They used it to oppress and indoctrinate them
Hmm.
and have them. We lost our our culture, our language,
Hmm.
our beliefs under the guise of Christianity. And that's
Hmm.
something that we do not address. And it's a struggle for a
Hmm.
lot of
Agreed.
people. Huh?
I said agreed. I think that should be another topic. I totally agree.
It's something that we don't address, and it's the elephant in the room, right? Because when I have someone tell me, you, for lack of a better term, your work, but you're Christian, don't you, how can you believe in a God that allowed you to be enslaved? And I come up with some verses in the Bible, but I struggle with that too. I have to
I
like think,
struggle with that big time. I struggle
you
with
know
that big time.
like that's real for real. Like I said, like I can think of something and say, whatever, but like it's a struggle, and we don't talk about it. There's one last note that I want to say. A
Hmm.
couple weeks ago, and I've been saying this a couple weeks ago, when they were like, the churches are essential business. If you are an essential business, you need to pay taxes. If you're deemed an essential business, you need to pay taxes, because all of those church leaders who are going to the White House, Olstein, what's the other guy who tried to blow away COVID, Paula White, the guy in Louisiana that opened up, and whatever, they're tax exempt and they're $1 million organizations.
And you know what, Rudy? As soon as I heard the whole thing, church needed to be open, you know what I said? I said, I'm sure that he's doing it because Joel Osteen went to talk to him. That's
It was,
exactly what I said.
it was a bunch of them. And my thing is that they need to, if it's an essential business, quote unquote business, now you've put business in there, because guess who wasn't going to him? The small churches, the black churches that aren't $1 billion industries, right? And so those are the things that we need to have a real honest discussion about, of like, when we are talking about the business of church, the Creflo Dollars, all of those people, and also how can we justify the systematic oppression that people had used under the guise of slavery for people that look like us.
So, Pastor D, so
And
for your
so,
question, so when you say should the church, yes, the church should.
mhm,
That's the answer. But do I
correct.
have confidence that the church will? My answer is no.
Obviously, today we've only scratched the surface of a conversation that needs to continue, um, not just here, but in the homes of each of us, in the homes of our white friends. We need to encourage everyone to continue the conversation. And so, as we close today, I want to remind everyone that there is a deeper issue. And no matter what we say today, the deeper issue is we are dealing with a sinful world. And as long as this world remains sinful, there will be people who will exploit, who will do things to because they have the authority to. And so what we have to do, Martin Luther King says it best when in his dream speech when he says that his dream is that his four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. We need to continue to hold on to that. I believe we have lost sight of this reality as a society that people ought to be judged by the quality of their character, not by the color of their skin. I don't believe endorsing government policies alone will fix the racism issue. Um, because again humans have flaws. Because of that, they're going to try to create a system that would benefit them in some way, and because of that we're always going to have this issue. But I also believe that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Martin Luther King Jr. who said it best, that only light can do that. And so we have to be the one to bring the light. What's the role of the church? We were supposed to be the light of the world. Each of us, we were supposed to be the light of the world. Light is what that's going to drive out darkness. Okay, so as we go into back into our homes and back into our community, I just want to remind us that God's kingdom and our kingdom is completely different. God Himself said, my kingdom is not of this world. But then He tells us, He challenges us to love our enemies. He challenges us to do good to those who hate us. He challenges us to bless those who curse us. He challenged us to pray for those who mistreat us. And he challenged us if someone strikes you on one cheek, to turn the other cheek. I hate the fact that I have to read this. I have to say these things to you. I'm being honest. But at the end of the day, if I'm called to be a child of God, then God is calling me to practice what He wants me to do. And that is the reason why I say our mindset have to change. I have to see you not as my enemy, but I have to see you as someone who is sick, who needs the remedy. And that remedy is Jesus. Jesus asks us, He says, if your enemy is hungry, you ought to feed him. This is your enemy he's asking us to feed. If your enemy is thirsty, you ought to give him something to drink. Who is our enemy? Who is your enemy? And then I'm saying this, someone may be saying, well, Monday, are you saying we should ignore social injustice? Absolutely not. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying though is that we need to recognize that no matter how equitable and no matter how many laws that we have passed, evil and racism will not be eliminated by those laws. Society will continue to decay. And so the only thing that can change the hearts of human beings is for them to know who God is, the real God, not the one that they created, not the one that say it's okay to abuse, not the one that says it's okay to have people under you and put your knee over them. No, I'm not talking about that God. That's a different God. That's not the God that I serve. That's not the Bible that I read. We as a church, we do have a mission. At the end of the day, our mission is to bring people to Christ. Our mission is to see people's heart change with the remedy that Jesus is providing. This is what I'm hoping. I may be a fool, but as I continue to live, as I continue to practice the call of being a Christian, that is what God is calling me to preach. That is what God is calling me to share. Before we go, I wanted to know if it's possible, those of you who are watching on YouTube or on Facebook, if you could take a moment right now to pray. Pray for your loved ones. Pray for the safety of your loved ones. Let's pray for one another. And then ask Jesus if he can give you the power to pray for your enemies so that they will have a change of hearts. It is possible for people to be saved even though we are living in the year 2020. Jesus can still save, Jesus can still make a difference in people's lives. We all have the opportunity. We all have the opportunity to grow. We all have the opportunity to, we want it. We want to grow. We want to advance. We want to be restored into the image of God. All of us, the opportunity is there, but we have to want it. We have to want the remedy. Will you please pray with me? Father God, in Jesus' name. The world is in turmoil. America is dealing with a pandemic, yet we are now dealing with racism. But in reality, the deeper problem, Lord, is not even racism or the pandemic. The deeper problem is that we have forgotten you. We have removed you from our hearts and from our minds. Oh Lord, we ask that you will forgive us. We ask that your church will stand firm and that we will continue to do the job that you call us to do to change the hearts and minds of people with the remedy, with Jesus. Lord, have your way. Heal our hearts. Heal this nation that we live in. We honor you. We thank you. We praise you. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. 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 I thank you, family. I thank each and every one of you for being part of the remedy today. And we invite you to be back right here at this time next week for another show. God bless you all.